Hello, everybody. Welcome to the entertainment headquarters and welcome to Kaiju Connections, my segment where we talk all things kaiju, monster, from cinema and television. And today, as you can see, I have a host of amazing guests, and we are here to talk about one of the most unique kaiju films, I believe, from Toho Studios during the 1970s. It is, of course, Space Amoeba. But to talk about this, I do have, like I say, a host of amazing guests. I have Mr. Jedi Granville, the Professor, Daniel Miller, Mr. Tony of the Dead, Sci-Fi Sentry, Thrashpondo Pons, and of course Anthony Jordan of Movies and Gaming. Welcome, my friends, and this film, honestly, is one of the most unique ones that I know of when it comes to kaiju. So we'll start off about when you first found Space Amoeba. So, Mr. Jedi Granville, would you like to start us off?
Yes, sir. Give it a whirl here. Now I first heard of this movie. This is like way back, probably before some of most of these 40-year-olds or whoever it is before they were born. In a book, I heard about it back then, but I didn't see the film until, like I think it was like late 2008 when I ordered this DVD way back then. So what do you say? Yes, exactly. Georg Munster from um, yeah. That's
Poor Dan.
Danny boy. He's getting razzed right away there.
Now it
But
begins. Now it begins.
like I say, I didn't see it until then. And one of the things about
Oh,
that is
thank you.
very,
Much
like you said,
appreciated. Thank
yeah.
you, Keith. Welcome. This is one of my monthly streams that I do with my amazing guest Chow. I love to talk kaiju and all things giant monster. So yeah, thank you for subscribing and hope you enjoy the show.
Yeah.
Jedi, sorry, continue.
Oh, no. I'll pretty much wrap it up. It was just like I say, that's when I first saw it. But the reason why I actually bought it because at the time I was buying DVDs of movies that weren't necessarily Godzilla, related in terms of having Godzilla in there. So the first movie that I wanted to get involved with was the Mysterians, and then others came along like Dogora, Atragon, and I said, well, if I'm getting this, I mean, I might as well get Space Amoeba too. And since then, and this is one of the reasons why I got hooked on liking Matango also, but like all these films,
Yeah.
they're unique. They have a very good structure. And this one here, it definitely does what I figured like Matango does. It goes a place where you didn't think it's going to go. So, but yeah.
And speaking of Batango, for those that, are tuning in today, my good friend here, Mr. Jedi Granville, he's just had a massive update on his channel. He's a badass content creator and he's just put up his review for the film Batango. So if you want to check it out, please check out Jedi Granville's channel. It's a great channel. He does a lot of kaiju content, and there's a lot more coming from him in the near future. But Mr. Daniel Miller, the Professor, when did you first see Space Amoeba?
My first time actually seeing it was very late yesterday, actually. I had a rough idea as to I knew of its existence for some time, but I never actually found the movie on DVD for many years because it's no longer in circulation now. But I found it yesterday. It had a look of it does have a lot of card numbers in there. Yes. So I watched it the first time, and it wasn't what I was expecting, because I only knew about it from the front cover. Okay, it's 3 kaiju fighting each other on an island with people caught in the middle. Then you actually watch the plot, and it's like, oh, okay, it's a quasi-alien invasion flick with mutant kaiju. That's interesting.
Yes. I'm quite surprised, Daniel, that you've not seen it till now, because with your knowledge and your love of this genre, I thought you would
Yeah.
have seen this way before now.
There are a lot of
My mind
gems
was
I
blown.
really do
My mind
wanna
was
see.
blown when you said that.
Yeah.
When you said that, Professor, my mind was. I wanted to go like, what? You didn't see it?
Would it be
The
shocking?
hell?
Should that be shocking when this is a film that's never really aired much in Israeli circulation?
True.
Like,
Yeah.
I'll get to when I first saw this, but Mr. Tony the Dead.
Well, let's see. It's 6:10 here. I saw it about 4 hours ago, and for the first time, and I didn't see the link that you had, so I had to like read
Yeah.
everything, which I don't mind, but it does sometimes take it away from things. But yeah, I saw it, and I didn't know really what to expect. I just saw like the creatures, and it was a fun watch. I think my favorite was the crab.
Oh,
I thought he
yeah,
was
though.
coolest looking.
You always get the crabs.
Dan, was this your first time right before the stream started? You said, "Oh, we jumped in."
No, the first time I only watched it yesterday in the evening, but I watched it early again this morning just to get it fresh in my mind.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
thought, wow,
I
I
mean-
watched this before you. That's crazy, but I guess not.
Yeah, I mean, this is technically it's my second time seeing it, but I do know the 3 kaiju that appear in the movie: Ghidorah, Ganymedes, and Camoebus, because they were referenced in Godzilla Final Wars through stock footage, and Camoebus did make an appearance as a dead prop in Godzilla Tokyo SOS.
Mhm.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. And I agree with our good friend who's watching us, Mr. DJ Anubis.
Yes.
Yes, and I hope
DJ.
you finished your little job that you were in the middle of before. I hope
Yeah.
you're successful with that. I hope you're smiling right now, if you
I
know what I
washed
mean.
his hands
Anubis.
like that.
Peace.
So, Mr. Sci-Fi Sentry, your first time viewing this classic.
Oh, I just wanted to say, respond to Anubis's comment. Anubis, you are the bitch. You are the bitch of all bitches. Just like you know that. Much love.
That's
But
it.
yeah, no, but well, aside from Kevin might get jealous. Kevin might, he might attest to that. But yeah, I didn't see it. I didn't see it until probably 2015. But I did first have my first interaction with Ghidorah was in the game Godzilla Monster or Monsters for the NES, for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Yes, exactly. Yeah, he's the one that got I'm the one that got like introduced that way to Ghidorah, because I played that game when I was like 10 or 9, and that's like, who's Ghidorah? I never heard of that. I knew all the other monsters, but I didn't know who that was. And then started in 2015, and I was like, okay, a lot of Toho regulars in the film as actors, and I was like, I was intrigued by the film, man. I really liked it. Like I did, that's why I wanted to be a part of the stream, even though I had a procedure done earlier. But yeah, it's a great film. Total Toho film. Just on an island, kind of
Hello,
like Godzilla
Sarah.
versus the monsters. So,
Sister Sarah.
but yeah, it's does it go? But it's yeah, it's a great film, man. Like, I enjoyed Kamoebus, Ganymedes, and Ghidorah, and it's a good film, man. It's fun. Toho, I guess you could say, pretty much Toho. It's a all Toho based production, which is great.
Yeah, we are. Mr. Thrash, your first time seeing this classic.
Well, as I put the old in old school, I believe I have all you beat, because I first saw this on TV when I was a kid on one of those creature feature shows. And we're talking like 1976, 77, sometime around there. The movie itself was still fairly new, even. And it actually just come to television. And it was actually known then as Yog, Monster from Space. And I remember being very confused as a child because initially I thought in my youth, I thought it was a Gamera movie, a Daiei, not Toho, because it had a giant turtle
Yeah.
and it also had a giant squid. And as we all know in Destroy All Planets, the race that tries to invade Earth are under their human disguise are squid-like. So I'm like, I noticed some similarities there.
Yeah.
But then, of course, they also go on to fight a giant crab, and Godzilla fights a giant crustacean in. Oh, I'm getting old. Godzilla versus the Sea Monster.
Yeah.
Help me out.
Ebera.
Yeah. So
Ebera Horror of the Deep.
Ebera. So it was kind of an eclectic to me, and then of course they threw bats in as well. Yeah, and I'm like, so it's the people who own the dark. So I mean, the movie kind of, for a 9-year-old on a rainy Saturday, this movie seemed to have a little bit of everything. Oh, I'm sorry. I said people who own the dark. I meant Chosen Survivors. Different post-apocalyptic film.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Finally, Mr. Anthony Jordan.
Well, the first time for me watching it was after when we did the watch along a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Due to obscurity, it never aired, and I was never able to get the DVD. It really went on my radar when I found out that's where Gazora was from because of this game here. Ever since I was a kid, I kind of wondered where that monster came from. So around 2014, when I found out it came from Space Amoeba, even though, you did briefly see him in Final Wars, I'm like, okay, that's one of the next movies I'm buying. Then I looked it up, and it's like $150. Are you kidding me? But, weeks ago, but it was a long time coming to finally see the horror.
Yeah. As for me, obviously, I'm a huge Godzilla fan. I knew of Gamera, I knew of Godzilla, I knew of Kong, I knew, there were other kaiju movies out there, like international ones, like you had the North Korean ones, like Yongari and Pulpazari, and then, of course, Space Amoeba, the War of the Gargantuans, things of that. But I had never, ever seen them. It wasn't until obviously the internet came to light, and then there were certain websites that would have them on, and I used to watch them online. And like I say, after the dubbed version of this particular movie is a part of Internet Archive, and so me, Anthony, and a handful of the others did a watch party to watch it to prepare for this. So that was my first introduction to Space Amoeba, but let's get cracking and talk a little bit about it. So Space Amoeba is also known as Gazora Gamaris and Kamibus, decisive battle giant monsters of the South Seas, in a 1970 Japanese kaiju film directed by Isho Honda, written by E. Ogwa, and produced by Tomoyoshi Tanaka. I'm not even going to attempt the second name. Fumio Tanaka, with special effects by Sadamasa Arakawa. Produced and distributed by Toho Studios. The film stars Akira Kubo, who is a Toho legend, and he is outside of Taranaka. He is my favorite actor within the Toho series, and a handful of others. So Space Amoeba tells the story of an alien amoeba that hijacks onto a space probe and crash lands in the ocean. So, who would like to get started with the story of Space Amoeba? Mr. Jedi Granville, would you like to
Okay,
start us off?
let me start it off. Well, I'll start with the story, but just to give you a little anecdote about this film. This is something I was going to say on Sci-Fi's Godzilla versus Gigan podcast, but I said I'm gonna save that for later because when he had mentioned that the effects that were done for that film were done by Nakano. Well, the reason why E.G. Subaraya didn't do the effects for that film was unfortunately sad that he actually passed away the year before this movie came out, which was early 1970. So, like I say, his legacy lived on through, like I say, the other people who did the effects and whatever, but the simple fact is he passed away actually far too young. But
Yeah.
like I say, it's and just a clarification too. This film was like the last of the so-called contract films of the time. It was like it was coming into the 70s, but it was like the last of those films that were so like robust during the 50s and the 60s, and then once you get in the 70s, that's when things started just kind of eased up in terms of price and everything. But getting to the story,
He also, he was also in Matango, and he was also in Monster Zero.
yes,
He was, yes.
exactly.
Yes.
He was the
So,
inventor who created the loud noise that the alien, that the Planet X aliens are afraid of.
yeah, that's still one of my favorite films.
Yeah.
But this film, as I told you before, this film is very, very unique. I mean, well, pretty much if you look at all the legacy archive of the old stuff, and even other studios like Dai and some others, I can't pronounce their names, they did a cavalcade of films that they start out where you wouldn't think they would start out, and this one is no exception. It's called Space Amoeba, but what you find out is it starts on the ground with a rocket launch, which is pretty much inspired by, of course, the Apollo rocket launches during this time.
Yeah.
And I got to say, the shot of the rocket lifting off, that was good miniature work, because the rocket the model that they used for that shot when it lifts off, I think it was like 6 or 7 feet, something like that, in length, in height and everything, and it was done very well because the exhaust of how it's showing the coming out of the engine, the thrusters and everything, was like that's pretty well done. But as the rocket lifts off and it goes on this so-called, I forget how many year mission,
3.5.
3.5. Thank you. Almost like almost close to Star Trek's 5-year mission in space. It journeys, and it's called Helios 7, and it's just traveling. It's going to, kind of like the space, not space lab, but what's the those probes they send out in space?
Voyagers.
Thank you.
1 and 2.
It's like kind of like that, and I'm not sure if that was. But I think this was before they started launching those. If I'm not mistaken.
Voyagers were later.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay,
late 70s.
So it was a precursor to the Voyagers doing that. But the Helios, it's traveling just on its lonesome self, seeing if they'll find any kind of civilization, whatever, and it encounters this unembodied entity that just takes over the machinery, and you don't know what this thing is. It just takes over, and somehow it manages to change its course and it sends it back to Earth. And I have to say, this moment when I saw this, it kind of reminded me of that film that Jamie Lee Curtis and what's his name?
Virus.
Yeah, Virus. Thank you. I was going to say Virus. It kind of reminded me of that film, because I saw that film way before I saw this one. And it kind of reminded me of that. And I was like, did they get that idea from this? Because the Virus, the movie Virus is actually based on a comic book, but I'm just going, did they base that on, get this inspiration from this?
There's an actual modern film that I think it inspired as well. I don't know if anyone's seen the film Alive. of Ryan Reynolds with
Yeah.
the alien, where they pick something up and it's like an alien on the, and it's
Oh
like
yes, I have.
Yeah.
it has similar
Definitely.
vibe to that as well.
But,
You definitely feel of
it
that
does.
off well.
true.
Yeah,
But to finish it, like I said, to finish it off, it redirects its guidance system, sends it right back to Earth, and in the midst of this, we're introduced to the first character, which is I think I forget his name in the movie, but Akira Kobo character, and he's on a plane. He's traveling. Yeah, there he goes.
so these are the three main human cast, like the ones that are the most important, alongside this character as well.
Yes, Mr. Kingsley Sahara.
Kenji.
Go ahead.
Kenji Sahara. Yeah.
But I had to
Kenji
say,
Sahara.
yeah, I was trying to make because I don't want to be messing up their names, but I got to say, Mr. Kobo-san. I don't know, when I first saw him in, Invasion of Astro Monster, I thought he was like in his early, I thought he was like in his early 20s. He looked so young, and even here he's young, but he looks young, but he was in his early 30s at this point. He's just like he just didn't age. It's like he had the gift of immortality. But he's in the plane. He's heading back from an assignment that he's been to take pictures because he's a photographer. And he reads upon Helios and everything because it's been lost supposedly. And he looks out the window and he just happened to see a capsule with a parachute coming down. He's like, "What? Helios has not been lost," And he tries to take a picture of it, but he misses the mark and it lands in the ocean. So, cut to in Tokyo, where he's in an office talking to the guy. I guess he sent him on the mission. And I have to say, this is, like I say, when I said this is one of the last of those films where you had a cavalcade of the old traditional actors on contract doing different parts that Sci-Fi had mentioned. It is like different people from like King Kong versus Godzilla. You have people from the Mysterians. You have people from the old school actors in here for a last, I guess, hurrah in some sense of the word. But they're talking and he's telling them like, "You didn't get the pictures that I told you to go get." It's like, and he's telling him, it's like, "Well, I saw Helios 7 come crashing down." It's like, "Well, I don't believe you." This is the editor telling him this, the guy that sent him on a mission. And he's kind of like, it's like, "Well, okay, I tell you what, when I get pictures of the actual Helios, I'll sell them to somebody else, and your ass will be up the creek." It's like what? It's like you can't do. And this is when we're introduced to another character, a female character, and I'm not going to try to pronounce her name. Yes, she. Oh, coincidentally, I don't know if you know this. I know Thrash might know it. Even Professor might know this. She was in Destroy All Monsters as one of the Kilax.
Yes.
Female. And let me just say, now she's a very beautiful woman, but I gotta tell you, the scene where the Kilax Queen and her and a few other women that were behind her, she doesn't fit the persona of somebody you would see put that scowl, because the rest of them had scowls on their faces when the Kilax Queen is speaking, and she was one of them standing there. But I look at her, I was like, man, she doesn't seem like the type to be scowling like that. She just, her face is too pretty. When I say pretty, she's too innocent looking in terms of, just being, she seemed too joyful, as I like to say, but I say that's just very good acting. Yeah.
My brother just wanted to say her name is Atsuko Takahashi.
Thank you.
Atsuko Takahashi.
You mentioned too, like this is like one of the last ones where we saw a lot of the regular actors.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be long after this, because once the studio system ended, like the entire film industry in Japan was turned upside down, and there were mass layoffs. So even Nakajima would bow out shortly after this, because although he thought he could keep up suit acting for more years, just seeing so many of the people he was close with and worked with for all the years gone, he just didn't have it in him to continue mentally anymore.
Exactly.
Well,
yeah.
The only thing we really saw as the main kaiju movie we saw in the 1970s was actually done by Rankin Bash. and it was the last dinosaur. And that is
Yes.
sort of a love letter to the kaiju subgenre, but it
Yep.
is definitely not a Toho classic.
No, it's
Yeah.
Super Aya Productions.
Hmm. Which might be a film we'll cover in a future date on Kaiju Connections.
Yes, please.
Yes. Yes, but obviously after he, sees, the photographs and all that, and he agrees to go to do this photo shoot on this island, it's revealed that the pod that lands in the ocean, the amoeba goes into the body. Well, we think it's a squid, but it's actually a cuttlefish.
Mhm.
And it's when they arrive on the island and, you meet the islanders and there's stuff going on. All of a sudden, the giant cuttlefish that's been attacks the island.
Yeah, right. It's like
Yes, and obviously the name of the cuttlefish gets the name of Gazora, which I think is quite an interesting name and looking kaiju.
I mean,
Yeah.
pretty much all of them have interesting names. I'm pretty sure the mutants too.
So, if you can remind the audience, what are the names of our three kaiju? You've got Gazora, Amoeba, and is it Gamaris?
It's Chimeras.
Animes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ganymes.
Mm.
Okay.
Ganymes.
That's what I was
Yes.
gonna say. I'm not trying to butcher their names, dude.
Whereas I call them not a squid, crab, and turtle.
There you
'Cause
go.
I can't pronounce any of that. I feel like I'm cursing if I say it wrong, you know?
We have
I
a
dare, you,
not
I dare you now to try the names.
I don't have
Gizora,
it in front of me.
Ganymes, Camoebus.
I don't even remember. Gamora,
Gizora,
Cunnilingus,
Ganymes, Camoebus.
Gunnilings.
I'm a huevos.
On all that track with fast method.
Come on.
Aliens.
Lemmywinks.
So we have a not Kraken, a not Gamera, and a not Ebera.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, Tony, try
stated.
pronouncing the Japanese names. Try pronouncing the
Oh.
Japanese names.
That's even worse.
I
That
think
was way worse.
the crab in this one looks a lot better than Ebera.
Yes, I think it definitely had to be inspired.
Although I think I got the impression that maybe they were going to go with a tarantula at first because it has hairs, and crabs don't have hairs, and this thing is kind of hairy. So
I
it's
noticed
almost
that
like
too.
they kind of changed their mind halfway through. You know,
Yeah.
Might have. That's
Yeah,
So
true.
Gazora
but it does look like a
attacks-
crab.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, definitely. Gazora attacks the village and attacks the people, and everyone is frightened. Everyone doesn't know what to do, and then suddenly they've got like them long torches with the fire. They then realize that Gazora is like frightened of heat.
Mhm.
So they quickly used what they had to try and get Gazora away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you would like to take over, Daniel Miller? Because you like to tell a good story.
Certainly. I'll try and get my storytelling voice on. Right.
I mean, you got need. You need.
Okay. So the three main characters, they get together on a boat heading out to one of the islands in the Bikini Atoll. Meanwhile, a photographer and a scientist are on the island when Gizora attacks, taking one of them into the water. And the locals see this Gizora as some sort of god that has somehow been angered by the outsiders, so it's exacting revenge upon them for disturbing its peace.
Mm-hmm.
Back on the boat, we're introduced to another character who is played by Kenji Sahara, playing the role of Makoto Obata, who brings himself across as a explorer of indigenous tribes in uncharted areas. But is he really, though? Let's fast forward. They arrive on the island, and they at first see it's very desolate. Yeah,
This
there he
guy.
is.
Very
Yep,
smug.
looking very
Yeah.
villainous with his shades and moustache.
He's like some kind of the gargoyle gang, with the goatee and the dark
Yeah.
glasses.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Did you also notice that the goatee is actually that's actually glued on?
No.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yes, I was fooled the first time I saw that. I was like, "Oh, that's his actual hair." But then, toward the end of the film, I could sort of see. Wait, what's going? What? Something's not right there. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to the story. They reach the island by an inflatable raft. They look around and they see it's pretty deserted till they go into a cave, and they see there's some lights in the water inside the cave. A guide who's, if I remember correctly, is one of the inhabitants of the island. He tries to leave, but they won't let him leave the cave because they want answers to what's going on. The water splurges all over the cave, covering the characters, and the lights disappear. The guide runs back to a small tavern, and he's followed by another character. And he's basically saying, "I want to get off this island. Get me off this island. I can't stand it anymore." When all of a sudden, Gizora comes out of the water and tears apart the tavern, trying to get to the people inside. And it's a really, really well done sequence. This said, merging the tokusatsu and the miniatures with the tentacle props and the live action on a set that was built. Yeah, the long story short, one of the two people is killed, taken away by Gizora. The other one is sort of just tossed into the bushes and basically left shocked and unconscious.
BK.
And that character he's a main character too. His name is
Yes.
Rico, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Rico, played by Noritake Saito.
Okay.
Or Sato.
Better than me.
Yep.
To answer that question, no, Space Amoeba wasn't the last kaiju film made under, science fiction film. I don't know. Do they still do outside the kaiju film? Do they still do science fiction movies?
They did. They like War in Space and I think a few others. I can't remember, but I mean, one of them was War in Space for sure.
Well, Matango would have been.
Well, that was in
Science
63.
Oh, but nah. But
He's talking about after it was it the last one? That's what he's saying.
Matango's more horror than anything.
Yeah.
Tango. Sorry.
I'm
I
sorry.
thought of Django when you said Matango. It's a Matango.
You know what? That works.
It does. It does work.
Oh, Tracy's here. Hey, Tracy.
Hello, Tracy. Okay. Continuing on. The rest of the characters return to the camp to find it in ruins, and they see Rico, who is in shock, and notice burns on his chest. But they're not burns from a fire or anything. It actually burns from minus temp from touching an object that's below freezing. So it's
Frostbite?
Frostbite. Yes.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, frostbite.
So when they go into the water. The photographer, let me just refresh my name, Taro, and I think it's Sakai. Yeah, it's Taro or Sakai who go underwater to find the space capsule Helios 7, where they're attacked by Gizora underwater. They manage to escape and head back to the surface, and Gizora follows them onto the beach and, of course, attacks the local settlement. And it's there that they...
Can I just say the underwater scenes were brilliant in this?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
you know, when they go diving underwater and suddenly suddenly they go underwater and you see like the gush of the sand get brushed up.
Yes.
And when the sand gets brushed up, then suddenly Gazora appears. I just think it's brilliant cinematography for its time.
Yeah, and that was also a really good reveal, which looking back now, I kind of wish that was the first time we actually saw Ghidorah in full. I mean, the shots earlier with him taking the scientists into the water and breaking through the hut were very good, but I think that seeing this one, where he's underwater and the sand's been brushed away, I think that's probably one of his better reveals. And I hope that this was the first time we actually saw Ghidorah's face in the movie.
Kind of like a precursor to what Jaws would do with in the film, where it's like we don't see. Well, we know the reason why we don't see Jaws, but when we finally do reveal him, it's like, oh, okay, this is a very fermenting.
Who else found it like kind of refreshing to not only have a relatively small kaiju, but to have them attacking like a more primitive community than a modern city?
That was a good decision, I think.
Yeah.
Well, it was a lot cheaper too.
Exactly. You know.
Yeah.
But it also adds more into the isolation element, because this isn't a technologically advanced society. This is effectively, by comparison, a primitive and more primal civilization. So of course they would have to rely on sticks and spears. But with kaiju, even of this size, which compared to Godzilla, they're not even a third of his height, there's still a sense of hopelessness about it, with just one of these things coming ashore and just trashing through your entire neighborhood.
Yeah.
Of course, they very conveniently find the World War II depot left by the Imperial military, and that helps out quite a bit. So, thank you. Just laws of convenience.
Well, exactly. Convenience is very something convenient. I mean, no pun intended. The fact that you have some place, but it's reflecting on real life, because the biologist, he mentions that some of these islands around Japan were occupied during World War II. So
and it's because of the bunker that they find, that they get the ammunition to be able to finally set fire to Ghidorah and to basically kill it. And I love that shot where it falls into the sea, and then you see it kind of float down to the bottom of the ocean, and then you see like the Amoeba leave it, and then it progresses further, and I think it goes into Gamera's next.
And you realize that's Nakajima's performance there, falling into the water and everything. That's him in that suit.
Yeah.
Yes. And he does it very well, but I bet you'd hurt like hell when you hit the water.
Oh yeah.
That was probably one of his softer moments, because he's had much more cataclysmic events before that.
Yep. Varan.
So what happens next is the space amoeba, it decides to possess a stone crab called Gamenus. How do you say the name again?
Ganymede.
Yeah, I'm thinking of Ganymede. So Gamane.
Ganymede.
Look, grab your nuts. That's what you call them.
I'm just gonna call this thing Ebera's fucked up cousin, right?
Okay.
Caname's.
I'm putting a line. It's Ebera's cousin. So Ebera's cousin.
We have Ebera at home.
Ever at home.
Oh, Kevin is never
order from which.
So it possesses Ebera's cousin, and Ebera's cousin attacks the surrounding islands. Luckily, the humans managed to lure Ebera's cousin into a pit and destroy it with explosives. And I will say the designs of the kaiju, like, look at Ebera's cousin.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a good design.
He looks like he had a long day at the office there.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Ebera's ugly cousin.
This is the example of him. Look, he's a crab, but this is where he really does get crabs after a while, and he's,
Well, I wouldn't want them kind of crabs.
Right.
I mean, from an effects standpoint, I do like how it was mostly mostly puppet operated with the eyes twitching around and the mandibles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So who's next?
That was funny, man. That was funny.
That's good stuff.
You could use some butter and garlic sauce.
Oh man,
Oh.
look. You realize I think back to Final Wars where Homeboy says, "I'm sorry, I'm a vegetarian." You know, just thinking to myself, the anthropoid that size, it's like, man, you feel a lot of bellies with a good garlic butter and little bread. It's like, dinner time, baby. Shoot.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, but like obviously because Ebera's cousin gets killed, the amoeba. This is where this kind of gives off the vibe. This is where they figure out that it's more than just giant monsters, because the amoeba leaves the giant crab and then floats into the jungle. So it shows you that it's sentient. Yes. It shows you that it's got like some sort of thinking behind it. And it's because of this that it goes into the jungle, and that's where the Space Amoeba decides not to just control one creature but two. It finds another crab and grows into another giant crab. Then it finds Kamebis, which is a mata mata. That must be the name of the animal, the mata mata turtle.
I don't know. What's the matter with you?
I was gonna say, what's the matter with you?
Which you do see in the very beginning, because the turtle scares them.
Yes.
He's like, I thought it was the monster, and it's like, I was like, oh, that's a cute turtle. And when you see him like that, it's like, oh wow, now you could be afraid of him.
Mm-hmm. And do you notice in the film where his neck stretches out like it does?
Yeah.
Now, I kid you. I mean, I keep referring to other later films, but in the Never-Ending Story, when we see that turtle, I don't know if y'all have ever seen it. This turtle's neck stretches out, and I'm just like, I wonder if that's another precursor to this film, But I mean, that's based on a novel. But I mean, it's just weird how that right there is just like this neck stretches out like any turtle does, and it's just coincidental.
Well, actually,
it's good details.
Well, actually, there's a turtle there's actually a living turtle that does that. I think that's what they based it on.
Okay.
There's like a turtle that has a long neck, and they just based. But of course, they Toho's got to add that kaiju flavor, that kaiju style of adding a very spiky shell, and it looked great. Like what Kamoebas to me was that. To me, it was a star. I like Ghidorah. I like animes. I mean, animes, aka Ibara's ugly ass cousin. But it's like it is funny that it was that they used it like that. That's what I like about Toho. Like they always go the extra mile to make whatever kaijus they create look good or look better.
Yeah.
And as far as, because that's hard, man. To have somebody in that freaking inside of that little suit, dude, that must be hard.
Yes. And can I say as well, because obviously, when did Gamera come out? Which was
1965.
1966.
65.
The fact that a rival studio came up with a rival kaiju that kind of was doing quite well. And here he is, Thrash is back.
He's back.
Because, we should have put a bet, Thrash, because you always do a bet, don't you? Let's see how long it takes us to freeze.
Freeze!
On some channels, we run a pool to see how long I go before I freeze up.
But, so... with Gamera, what I was going to say is maybe this movie was invented to have a little mini dig at Gamera. The fact that
I'm certain of it.
Virus was like a giant squid. You had Ghidorah, and then you've got Kamebis. Then you've got Ebera's cousin. Gamera's, and it makes me think, was this because don't forget there's that one particular scene where the turtle's getting the shit kicked out of it, and it's like, and the neck's going in and out when it's on its back, and it's like dying like that. for me, is that like a dig to Gamera and the rival studio?
Maybe. But I want to
Not me.
add this little tidbit real quick. I know Thrash knows about this for sure. There was a movie that came on back in late 70, or was it late or early 78?
Bermuda Depths.
Bermuda Depths. Thank you, sir.
Bermuda
I
Depths.
knew you would know this.
That would have been 78, 79.
Yeah, it was late in the 70s, but it involved a giant turtle, and it was done by the same people who did The Last Dinosaur. So I'm
Superwire
wondering,
Productions.
Superwire Productions. So I'm wondering, as you say, could that have been, like I say, a knockoff of Gamera at that time?
Definitely.
Maybe a little
That
bit.
can be very true.
Definitely.
Yes.
You know what I thought
So-
was impressive too, though, is that not only were the suits amazing, but you can't really tell unless you're really looking that somebody's walking it. It actually looked like it was moving the squid or the crab was going.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not going to butcher any names, but I just thought it was very impressive. And then, like you said, the turtle on his back doing that. It's like I'm just thinking that's a guy in that suit, but it looks like the real thing. I was very impressed.
Yeah.
I noticed as well. Like, for example, the only time with the squid or the cuttlefish is the only time I could tell that it was a man in the suit is the death scene where he walks to the water, and you could see the legs kind of tipping over to drop into the water. That's the only time. But when he's actually in the forest, the jungle, and the things are moving like that, it's for its time. It's quite a solid effect.
Well,
Yeah.
you got to give a lot of
you-
credit to the cinematographers, because they knew how to shoot these things to cover up some of the tells.
Cinematography by
And you know-
Taiki Kankura.
Yes.
And I did like how Kamoebas wasn't totally just helpless, man. I like the part where Kamoebas hooked with his head and bit Ganymedes, and then flipped intentionally and used the spikes on his back and landed on Ganymedes's back, and then got back up and then got back down again. So it was a good. It's like I said, it's there was a comment saying that maybe Toho just did wanted to change it up, change up the flavor of let's do something different other than recycling old Toho kaiju suits. Let's make new ones, but on a budget. I'm pretty sure this was a much cheaper movie to make, but like Anthony and Thrashpondo said, it was they started going on the cutbacks of layoffs and all that stuff, so that's probably why they wanted to do something that was it was easier. It seemed easier to do it just my opinion, easier to do it on an island with.
That was one of the problems that they had. Is that I'm trying to remember the kaiju movie that came out just before this. I think you guys are gonna help me out. I'm drawing a blank. It's the one with Minya and the little boy who fantasizes.
Godzilla's Revenge.
Godzilla's Revenge.
Godzilla's Revenge. All monsters attack. Godzilla monsters all attack. Yeah, all monsters attack. Yeah.
That didn't do especially well, and Toho kind of panicked. So the way I'm the understanding of the story is they slashed the budget. Initially, when this was written, it was going to be sort of like the Gone with the Wind of kaiju monsters. It was a full-fledged alien invasion, and one of the things the aliens were going to do were they would use kaiju as sort of like their shock troops. And Toho went, yeah, we can't afford this. And they kept having, it was rewritten at least 3 times. They kept slashing the budget. That's why they had to make do with an impressive, but that whole space probe subplot, it really feels tacked on, and it's because it was. It was supposed to be a full-fledged alien invasion. They just couldn't do it, and I think that's why this movie really feels like you can almost see where they rewrote it. Like, oh, look, they must have gotten these pages that morning, and oh, that was probably going this way, but then they had to go that way instead. It's like, I mean, for one thing, the bad guy, I'm going to butcher his name, Sahara.
Yep.
Kenji Sahara. Yeah.
Thank you. He says he's an anthropologist. He's actually a corporate spy. He was stealing
Yes.
plans for an underwater hotel, and Akira Kubo like tries to kill him for this, and I'm like, you're a photographer. What do you care if he's a corporate spy? You're not invested in his shenanigans. Why are you getting so angry at him?
Yeah.
But it was germane to the plot that there had to be a sort of conflict between not just the humans, but the Japanese humans. The islanders are all sort of like one inclusive. The main conflict is between the 4 Japanese characters. Oh, and by the way, you want a fun drinking game? Drink every time when someone screams the name Rico.
You know what
Yeah, right.
I find the most. You know
You
what
will
I
get
find,
liver failure. I swear. Rico, Rico, Rico.
You know what? You know what I find the most humorous about what you said? Why they slashed this movie's budget? That anyone looked at Godzilla's Revenge and expected that movie to make a massive profit.
Well, you know, the weird thing is they really try to reinvent Godzilla as a sort of kid-friendly, family fun type thing. You know,
because that was the direction they were going in, because Gamera was a kids-friendly franchise, so they were trying to compete, because it's like anything, it's like genres change, society changes, the way people watch cinema, or certain aspects, or like certain, like, I don't know, genres seem to get popular, like obviously thanks to the Avengers, superheroes seem to be dominating the cinemas. At one time, it used to be cowboys and Indian movies and gangster films, and obviously back in the 1950s, it was the crazy sci-fi craze. So they had to try and change things up.
But the child-friendly subplot worked fine in Godzilla versus Hedorah. But it worked silly with Minya. I mean, so the kid's fantasizing that he's friends with Minya, and it helps him overcome the bullies. And I'm sorry, Minya, was that the best design they could come up with? He looks like Grimace from the early McDonald's commercials.
I mean, you mean the talking version of him, or what?
Yeah, the talking version of him.
You got to remember too. Remember that people forget that Eiji Tsuburaya loved children. He never wanted to see Godzilla bleed. He never wanted to see Godzilla in any real distress. And I think once he passed away, that's where they leaned toward Godzilla versus Gigan, where Godzilla finally started to bleed.
Let's keep him. Even though he never wanted that, and he hated like excessive bloodshed and whatnot, he was also involved with Ultra 7, where Ultra 7 had that blade thing on his head, and he would defeat the monsters by throwing it and literally cutting them to pieces.
Well, you got to remember, those are kaijus. I mean, because I remember that very well, where Ultra 7, Ultraman, they would like literally dismember different kaijus, and like, well, I mean, that's pretty cool, but that's pretty graphic. But we have to remember that is kaijus and not human.
But I think, but I just think no. Anthony has a good point, and Thrashpondo's too. But I'm just saying that Godzilla was Ishiro Honda, Tomoyuki Tanaka, Eiji Tsuburaya, and Akira Fukube's baby. That was their creation. So I guess, because Tsuburaya, believe it or not, Tsuburaya had a little Tsuburaya had just as much sway as Ishiro Honda did, even though Ishiro Honda was the director. They both were. What I liked about that is they both had like equal, I guess you could say equal power, but they didn't. There wasn't bickering. There wasn't this. They all worked together with it. Go ahead, Daniel. I thought what you were going to say. I'm sorry.
No, just to add on to Sci-Fi's thing, another founding father of Godzilla who doesn't get much recognition was the writer Shigeru Kayama, who initially wrote it as a story about a giant octopus, but then later changed it to the iconic radioactive dinosaurian behemoth that we know it now. And just going back briefly to the subject of Ultra 7, does anyone remember or know of Ultra Q?
Ultra
Q.
Yes.
I remember Ultra Q. Yes.
Yeah, the precursor to Ultraman. It's effectively the Twilight Zone if it were handled by a Japanese production.
Ultraman's technically a sequel to Ultra Q.
Yes.
I'm just going to quickly finish.
Yeah,
I'll just quickly finish the story, then we can talk about like the production of the movie. So, the space amoeba decide to control the two creatures. This time, Ebera's cousin, Mata turtle named Kamibis. The two monsters raid the human camp. Luckily, Kudo realizes the two monsters making supersonic waves. By releasing a storm of bats, the amoeba loses control of its creations, Gamaris and Kamibis. No longer under control, go berserk and begins to battle one another. The humans, using more explosives, cause the volcano to erupt, engulfing the space amoeba and the two monsters. And as it Saki ends up sacrificing himself into the volcano.
Because I think he was at some point possessed by the amoeba, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
He certainly
He
was.
was like trying to sabotage the camp, I think.
Like that,
He was trying to kill all the bats. He was killing all the bats, and
Amoeba is
then
very sensitive to sound, as I say.
I like that with him sacrificing himself, though, because it showed even though he had his very selfish motivations, that deep down he wasn't a terrible person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean his humanitarian self really came into light.
Yeah, he was violated by the space amoeba, and he's like, I cannot live like this.
Which, of course, is a tribute to Horror Express.
Yeah.
The loosely adapted Lovecraft story. Well, I say Lovecraft. It's more Who Goes There, but facts. The Thing is really adapted from the Lovecraft short story about Beyond the Mountains of something or other. You know the one I'm talking about.
The Mountain of Madness.
Thank you.
Yes.
And also Who Goes There, but in Horror Express, the alien leaps. He doesn't maintain a cadre of possessed entities. He leaps from one to another, specifically from the caveman to the priest. But he possesses them, but can actually more or less interact with humans. It's also something we saw in Night of the Blood Beast with Ed Nelson, which I believe is about a Martian who believes that humans need to reach the next stage of evolution by creating Martian-human hybrids. And in the end, they burn him up in a cave, of all things. So, I mean, you can see a lot of other works that Space Amoeba drew upon to sort of flesh out its scenery. Exactly. And I think they did that, again, because they were going through so many rewrites and having to slice their buttons. Maybe if we borrow this trope here, and maybe if we borrow this trope there, we'll really have something. And there's nothing wrong with borrowing from other things. I mean, heck, you mentioned Bermuda Depths. That's that scene where you see the lights bubbling up in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
You also see later on, speaking of Bermuda Depths, when is it the Burr Lives? When one of the doctors is killed, Bermuda Depths, you see that light and the bubbling in the underground cave before the creature pops out. Yeah. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with a little friendly borrowing between the studios, as I believe it was Orson Welles said. Borrowing from each other is fine. It's when you start stealing from yourself, you have to be ashamed.
Yes.
Yes, very true. Mm-hmm. I've just read a little bit about the production of the movie. So it says E. Ogawa wrote the original script for this film in 1966 as a proposed joint production between Toho and UPA under the title Great Monster Assault. This script was considerably more ambitious than the finished product, featuring alien monsters invading the Earth and submerging entire continents. Production on the film did not begin until 3 years later in 1969, when the project first appeared on Toho's production lineup, still under its original title. Ogawa's script was heavily altered, removing the global scope of the original story and moving the setting entirely to the fictional South Seas island of Sergio Island. Producer Fumio Tanaka later said that he believed the film went through 3 drafts and stated that the original draft featured the alien invaders being attacked under nuclear weapons. Despite his failing health, Tokyo's long-term special effects director Eiji Tsuburaya expressed his desire to be involved with the production as such was to be credited as the film's special effects supervisor, while his former pupil, Sadamasa Akakawa, acted as the director of special effects. However, Tsuburaya died just 2 days after the start of the filming on January the 25th, 1970, and is only credited in early promotional materials for the film. Toho rejected a proposal by some staff members to dedicate the film to Eiji Tsuburaya. Akakawa was especially angered, refusing to talk about the film in his later life.
Yeah, I
remember. Since you mentioned, I got a quote from Mashiro Honda that could go right along here. With a movie, you want them to run from start to finish. To say the drama and special effects are separate is not true. Special effects are there to help make a film as great as it can be. They are the heartbeat of the film. In the beginning, Tsuburaya and I talked about it. Tsuburaya said the special effects are only special effects if you can't tell they're special effects.
That's true.
Yeah, and like I said, they to me had equal power, but they didn't sway it one way, or they didn't sway it to left or right. They worked together, and that shows just what Honda-san said was, it's like he said, you can have the actors, whatever, but to Tsuburaya, to them, the special effects were just as important as the film was. And remember, and I gotta say this just to add, Tsuburaya had at least 3 apprentices. And if anybody here has seen Godzilla larger than life, or
bringing it to life, bringing it down to size.
Bringing Godzilla down to size. If you guys saw that, you would know that. I forgot his name. I think his last name was Inoue. Inoue. Izuki. What the professor said, because he pronounces everything right. Thank you, Danny.
You're welcome.
It's like he was Inoue was probably the best successor, and he worked on a few. He actually became a supervisor and helped some of the people that went into the like say the 70s and the Heisei. But there was a lot. He had like 3 at least. He had 3 top successors. That's why in other movies you can see how some you go look into the information Wikipedia, some had different special effects director. So I just wanted to throw that up there.
But look at this. Look at this. Somebody appreciates me Geordie accent and wants to hear it pronounced Japanese every day.
We all appreciate your accent, Kevin.
Yes.
I don't think the Japanese would appreciate it.
Kevin, please, bro, please just say Ganamaze one more time.
Ganamaze.
You mean grab your nuts? That's what you're saying?
Ganamaze.
Grab your nuts.
Ghidorah.
Grab an ace. He's grabbing ace.
Grab your nuts.
Ebera's fucking ugly cousin.
Yes.
And I think it's actually reprehensible that Toho did not seize the opportunity to dedicate this movie to Tsuburaya. After you worked on so many of their feature films, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, and maybe there's like cultural differences in Japan, but I mean, Clash of the Titans, the good one, it's actually dedicated to the works, to the career of Harryhausen.
Yes.
You know, when someone's a national treasure, particularly to your studio, and how many billions of yen do you think Tsuburaya earned Toho, and they couldn't say dedicated to the memory of.
It is fairly discussed now, will I say that? Like, for example, all the work he did in all the classic movies that he's built that's still being watched today. And if that was the last film he dedicated his life to, and yes, he was too ill to probably do much of the work, but the fact that he might have give some sort of, even if he just had 2 days supervising on the set, then went away, then unfortunately passed. The fact that he still had that passion and drive when he was so ill to want to do it.
Yeah.
And for them to show him basically little to no respect at all. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Isn't Godzilla the #1 film franchise in history? Doesn't it beat out all other
Longest
concepts?
running.
It's the longest running continuous franchise in the world. So it's in the Guinness Book World Records for being the longest continuously continuing franchise in the world. So it's above Marvel, it's above James Bond. For the amount of films, it's never not been in production. Yes,
Above Dracula, and that's a feat.
Yeah.
And even before,
I think there's a 36 or 37 Godzilla movies.
Yeah, 30. Yeah, 36, I think it is.
Just the inspiration to the subgenre. How many other movies are basically a love letter to Godzilla? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Oh, you can't count them on your hands. I can know that.
I've just literally, like, I don't know if you've seen the Thrash as well, since we're talking about Gazora and that he was a giant squid. Well, it's actually a cuttlefish, but they call it a squid. I know in Norway, there's a Norwegian kaiju film coming out this year called The Kraken, and there's in Russia there's another Kraken movie coming out where they've just dropped the poster and the trailer, and it looks quite good. So you can't tell me when we finally get around to watching those films that there won't be a little bit of influence in them from this, or part of at least the Toho monster franchise as a whole.
I know, seriously.
Sorry, Kevin.
No, carry on.
Yeah, just add on to the achievements of Tsuburaya. Before he pioneered the tokusatsu technique in Godzilla, he was also excellent in terms of the miniature effects. Look at Battle from Hawaii to Malay. The miniatures, especially for the destruction of Pearl Harbor, were so convincing that General Douglas MacArthur's film censors actually mistook the special effects scenes for genuine war footage.
And that actually got him listed as a war criminal.
It did.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Marvel have the money, yes, but I'm talking about the length and the longevity of a franchise. So, Marvel, so Godzilla is in the Guinness Book World Records for being the longest consistent movie franchise ever. So, it's had 36 films over a period, well, ever since 1954 up to now. And yes, there's been gaps or periods of of a break in between, but it's never a franchise that's officially, I guess, come out and said we're ending the franchise once and for all and it's finished completely.
There's never been...
That's not counting the Columbia TriStar travesty, Big Iguana Eats New York.
Yeah.
the
movie.
Even though there's been gaps between films, there's never been a set decade where a film hasn't come out.
That's true.
Even when they made the TriStar movie, I know that they kind of with Godzilla vs. Destroyer, they ended the Heisei era version of film, but they never once, I think, said that they were going to never ever not make another Godzilla movie. I think they said we're going to be on a break for a few years to let it rejuvenate itself, and hopefully the American version will bring some more interest back to it. But there was that much of a stink after the 1998 movie that Toho straight away went, right, no, we need to get on this. And that's when they went straight into production on Godzilla 2000 Millennium.
And I'm so glad they did that, because I was like, give me something from Toho, please.
Yeah, they didn't. they didn't want the last memory or the last memory of Godzilla to be the 1998 version. So they just were like, no, we're going to have to get on top of this, and they did. And I personally enjoy Godzilla 2000.
So did I.
Remember, Thrashpondo Pons. Be wary, my friend. Do not ever really talk that bad about Walter's favorite Godzilla movie, which is 1998. So do not do that.
Why? See why? Why?
I
was
had a
like,
feeling he was
somebody's gonna
kidding.
bring that up.
Oh, did you enjoy the movie, Walter? All kidding aside.
No,
I'm sorry.
I plead the fifth.
I apologize. I'm very
No,
sorry.
it's all good. No, it's all good. I mean, look when I made
No,
that
I
face when you
actually-
mentioned it, I was just like, he's just messing with it. When he mentioned it, I was like, I can't.
He hates that film, man. He hates that film. He went to the theater 3 times to try to make himself like it.
I saw it again because I'm like, maybe I missed something, and I'm like, nope. Although I gotta say, I love the Jean Reno subplot. The French underground.
He should have been the star of the movie.
Yes. I mean, I thought that actually made the film watchable. Well, that and the Hank Azaria comic relief.
In the first about 15 minutes or so until they get to New York is actually pretty decent because it does build a nice amount of mystery around Godzilla.
So we'll go around. Let's answer this gentleman's question, Rocket Man. Walter, what's your favorite Toho film or Godzilla movie?
Well, both or either. I guess the question.
Well, either, yeah.
Well, some of you panelists don't know this, but some of you do. My favorite Godzilla film is Godzilla versus Megalon. But my favorite Toho film of all, and I discussed it yesterday, which was Matango. That has got to be by far my favorite Toho film. I mean, it's as much as I enjoy all the other random Godzilla films, and I also say I love Kurosawa's Redbeard. That's my favorite Kurosawa film. Matango is my favorite Toho film. So,
Daniel Miller.
Okay, my favorite Godzilla movies. I'm going to go with 2. There's Godzilla 1985 and Godzilla 2000. My favorite Toho movies, again 2. It's going to be Varan 1958, the Japanese version specifically, and 1965's Battle in Outer Space.
Anthony.
Godzilla 1984.
okay.
Just my favorite Godzilla film, and it might be my favorite Toho film, but since I'll give an honorable mention and throw in Mothra versus Godzilla 62 as another just honorable mention.
Mr. Tony the Dead, I know you're just like kind of getting, involved with the kaiju stuff because you said you're trying to collect them and get to watch more of them. Have you got a favorite yet?
Well, the one that I would say is my favorite at the moment isn't even. I'm pretty hypocritical because remember last time I was on, I was like, I just want to see the monsters fight, and my favorite right at the moment is Godzilla -1.
Yes,
and that's like more of the humans' story instead of his, but it's like done so well. As far as my other favorite or something, I don't really know yet. I'm still new. But I remember liking Godzilla 2000, but I haven't seen it since then, so I don't know.
Yeah. Century.
Holy shit! I like a lot of them in the Toho universe, but I like a lot of them. But as you guys know, majority of everybody here knows, the first movie I ever saw was, and probably is my number one, and that's Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Thrash, do you have a favorite Godzilla movie and a Toho film?
I do. I'm gonna go with. This is more of nostalgia than because I think it's the best. But my favorite Godzilla film of all time has to be Godzilla versus Hedorah, because my mother, Mama Thrash, took me to see it for my 6th birthday. It was actually on the big screen, and it was the first time I got to see a Godzilla movie not on a little black and white television, and it was like.
And you say you were 6 years old. That was like, yes, blow mind blown.
And also, if you guys remember, speaking of, you could tell, rest in peace, Subaraya was not involved in it because it's actually really violent. It's really intense. And talking about Godzilla being in distress, he's drowning in at one point, and that's like I remember going ah. So yeah, that movie's sort of like blew my mind when I was a kid. So that's my favorite Godzilla film. As far as Toho Studios go, I'm torn because in addition to liking the kaiju films, I like a lot of their anti-war flicks.
Yes.
And I had snuck off to IMBD trying to pick one while you guys were all giving yours, and it's kind of funny. I was going to say Fires on the Plain, but that's Daiei. So I can't say my favorite Toho film is a Daiei film, but I would have to go with one of their. Now you can't say war films because they weren't permitted to make films with glorified war. They say they made anti-war films. So I'd have to go with one of Toho's anti-war films. But you know what? You guys pick one because there's no bad one in the bunch.
Well,
and one thing I have to say while we have a second, Jedi, I apologize. It was my intention to watch your Matango deep dive before tonight, and I just wasn't able to do it. I promise I will because Matango is one of my favorite films too by Toho.
Oh, okay.
I will watch it. Oh, and one more thing. The little cool fun fact about Space Amoeba, all 3 of the male leads were also in Matango.
yes.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
As for me and my favorite Godzilla movie, we all know 1954. Then, if I've got to pick 2 bonus ones, it would be Invasion of the Astro Monsters and Godzilla -1. As my favorite other Toho film away from kaiju, 7 Samurai. You cannot beat 7 Samurai. It's an absolutely awesome.
Every time the Criterion has a sale, I look at that and I'm like, next time.
Get
I
it.
never get it.
You don't
Yeah.
You don't know
sleep
what
on
you're
it.
missing.
You just get it next time it's on sale.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like Toshiro Mifune, they do a box set. Or no, it's an Akira Kurosawa, the director.
Yes.
There was a box set I seen the other day, and I didn't have the money to get it, and it was the Kira Kurosawa Samurai Collection.
Yeah.
And there was also the Kira Kurosawa Detective Collection. I didn't even know he did them kind of movies.
He
And
did.
so I went to go get the Samurai Collection. It was sold out, but they had the Detective Collection, and I wish I went for that one, and I didn't. But I'm hoping the next time I go into town, if the Samurai Collection is back in stock, I'm gonna get it.
Here's one of the detective films.
Since you mentioned
Yes.
Toshiro Mifune, I believe 7 Samurai was his first film, and he would go on to star in the Samurai trilogy, which was a fictional account of the life of Miyamoto Masashi that if you haven't seen it, go see it.
Yo, Jimbo. Or...
Yeah.
This
Like I think Toho's greatest assets were them 2 directors, Akira Kurosawa and Honda, who did all of the Godzilla movies. They were there too. They were Toho's key to success for me.
And when Akira Kurosawa was given a Lifetime Achievement Awards by the Academy at an Oscars, it was actually Honda who, shame on you for never giving him one, accepted the award posthumously in Kurosawa's memory.
Mm.
One of the reasons why I'm so, divided with the Academy, because I mean they're so political, but I'm not gonna hawk on that. I'm not
It's like they don't like sub-genres or certain types of genres. Like my biggest ick of this year with the Oscars is Mr. Tony Todd, who played the Candyman, and it was a horror legend. He wasn't even acknowledged in the at the Oscar, and it's because he does horror films. They don't consider horror a proper way of filmmaking, which
He does so much more than that. He did so much more than that, though.
he was amazing.
Yeah,
I
that's a
loved
shame.
him. I loved him in Star Trek.
I'll be right back, guys. I'll be right back.
He gave
Right here.
He gave one performance in Star Trek Deep Space Nine that he will bring you to tears in that performance. It's so powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bit of a thing here where with sci-fi and horror, there's, especially with the Oscars, they sort of consider them as either taboo or in some way cliche, so they're not recognized, even though just how many famous names and awesome movies and even special effects artists have made their careers through those genres.
Yeah.
It's like this. I'm glad a Godzilla film finally won an Oscar, but it's still it's a very bittersweet moment because the best special effects was just sort of, let me throw you a bone and you can go back in the corner with the other kids where you belong.
See, don't get me started, Anthony. Because see, I can go into a rant right now because I say I love the fact that a Godzilla film, Godzilla got something for something, but it got cheated at the Oscars for not getting multiple award nominations.
Why
that.
Wasn't the star of the film nominated for Best Actor when he gave such a powerhouse performance?
Yes.
Well, I've always said I knew for a fact it would never get nominated for Best Picture, but I always said if it was going to be up for any two awards outside of the effects, it should have been for Best International Film.
I agree.
Because it was. And they say the reason it wasn't nominated is because it didn't meet the deadline. But I'm sure that year there was another film that only came out in January and was up for nomination. So how did that work?
Exactly. Insane thing.
Snub. It was a snub.
But the recent Oscar, there was a film that came out a little later on the calendar year that was up for awards, but yet you're going to pick a technicality for this film because it's got a giant monster in it when we all know good and well you waive those rules at your whim.
Yeah.
That's why I know it's all bullshit.
70 years for this guy to get his first Oscar.
Like I'm sure the film that was nominated and it had only been out a couple of months. It was that film that starred Emma Stone.
Poor Things.
I don't even remember what that movie was.
I think it might have been that one. Yes. No, it was the one Tony said. Poor Things.
Poor Things.
In that.
By the way, I decided what my favorite Toho non-kaiju film is. By the way, if you'll indulge me.
Yes.
Stray Dogs. Again, Kurosawa, starring Toshiro Mifune. I love that flick. I wish. Well, there's so many influences in there. I wish someone would just I dare not say reboot because I know they'd ruin it. But there's so many ideas in there I think they could do today and get a fresh take on it. It would have to be done by a true connoisseur of Kurosawa films. Tarantino might pull it off. I don't know.
He could, but he might just Tarantino too much.
Toshiro Mifune was really to Akira Kurosawa what I can't think of his name. Takarada was to Ishiro Honda.
Don't forget the Magnificent Seven was based on the Seven Samurai.
Yeah, Yul Brynner was so impressed with the film, he got the rights because he wanted to tell his own version of it.
And I'm sure in Japan they did do a remake of Seven Samurai.
There are actually 3 movies that are based on Seven Samurai. The Magnificent Seven, of course. Someone else mentioned in the credits, I believe it was Queen, Battle Beyond the Stars.
Yeah.
And of course, no one sees this one, but it is Bug's Life.
I got another, since you're
That's
mentioning
awesome.
that, I got another one no one talks about.
Oh,
The
okay.
Professionals with Lee Marvin.
Oh, of course, was
Burt Lancaster was in it too.
Yes.
It's a very Magnificent Seven style story.
I can see
There's
that.
there's a film
And,
called The Invisible Six that came in 1970. That's a knockoff of the Seven Samurai in the
Really?
Magnificent. Battle Beyond the Stars from 1980. That is actually a space version of Magnificent Seven.
Right.
Director Zack Snyder credited Seven Samurai as being an inspiration for his 2023 space opera film Red Moon. Director Dennis Velle, him who directed, I can't pronounce his name, didn't even ask us. Him who directed Dune. He cites Seven Samurai as one of his favorite films of all time and an influence on his 2015 film Sicario.
And this speaks volumes about just how influential Japanese cinema is on a global stage, because Seven Samurai, as we said, it's spawned the Magnificent Seven. And then again, you look at something from Battle in Outer Space, and then you see something like Star Wars, and you wonder, oh, this feels very similar. Was this somewhat the influence for Star Wars?
Hidden Fortress.
Yeah, Hidden Fortress. I love that as well.
Yeah.
When you put Hidden Fortress
and
together with Star Blazers or the actual name Space Battle Cruiser Yamato, you have Star Wars.
Yes.
I mean, let's make space capital ships that look like dreadnoughts. Okay, and we'll do it to a Kurosawa setting, and you have Star Wars. So definitely.
Well, can we say that Messages in Space is almost an influence of Magnificent Seven to a degree? To some point?
Yeah, I can see that.
I would say that. I would say that not only that, but like Mifune, like back in that time, with Toho, he was also put in roles as Miyamoto Musashi and other well-known Japanese historical figures, especially samurai. And he, like, they spawned like not just the Seven Samurai, but they spawned like other, talking about Miyamoto Musashi, which is the most famous philosopher / Japanese swordsman that ever lived, who fought what do you call it, I forgot his name, Kojiro Sasaki. And it's like Mifune was also very well known, man. Like that, there you go, that one too. All of those. Yep. He has them too. Yep. He's got the exact same ones. Yep.
Like I said,
And it's like you guys say, it's spawned so many, not knockoffs, but they were inspirations.
I know. Like,
I know this shows you the importance, though, of the Godzilla and the Kaiju franchise to Toho, because our good friend, Sci-Fi Sentry, has been to Japan. And he travelled to Toho Studios, and when you get to the building, they have like a mural on the wall of Godzilla, and they've got the Godzilla statue outside the gate. But he can also attest to this, to the importance of other genre movies, because there is a mural of the Seven Samurai also on the wall of Toho Studio, and there's a mural of Mothra in the entranceway as you walk through. So it just shows you that they know what, where the bread is buttered, should we say, with what films have been, that are historically part of the legacy of Toho Studios. And having this conversation, I know we had to talk about Space Amoeba, but because we've had this great conversation, I've decided for a future live stream, we're going to do a future live stream where I'll pick 4 movies, and the 4 movies will be Akira Kurosawa movies, and we're going to do Akira Kurosawa special.
Oh wow! I just got skeet.
And so I'm definitely picking Seven Samurai. Hidden Fortress is definitely going to be on there. And I might put a poll up, or if you make suggestions later on for the other two movies, and we'll get cracking and we'll talk about them. So that'll definitely be a future live stream coming up on the Entertainment Headquarters. But let's get back to Space Amoeba. Final thoughts and your overall thought on the film. We'll start with Mr. Walter Ross.
Okay, well, just to put it into perspective, it's I could say it's a little bit better than some of the ones that have come out. You know, especially for a '70s film, it does a very good job of giving very good storytelling. I mean, because like I say, it's the last of those contract workers. You know, before the layoffs, before everything else. You know, it was one of those grand films. And sad to say that, knowing that Super Ryan wasn't on this, but he did have a hand in it, it makes it even more, you know, robust in what it is. So I would give it at least, I say about an 8 for what it is.
Cool. Yeah. Mr. Daniel Miller, the Professor.
Now, knowing that this movie started off much grander than the finished project because of the layoffs and the slashed budgets, I'm going to give it some leniency. The idea of changing the setting from civilizations, like you have all these skyscrapers and national monuments being trashed by kaiju, they're fun to watch, but it is good to change it up a while. Hence why setting this on an island in the atoll area was a good choice in my opinion. There are elements which did feel tacked on, as Thrash said earlier, but it's easy to see how the writers were able to make it work, even if they were just put on in the last minute. In terms of a movie that you would revisit, I actually would revisit it later on in the future, because there are more elements to appreciate and even discover than what we've already talked about in the video. And as Walter said, it does feel like a last hurrah with bringing many of the iconic Toho actors together after they've been in earlier movies from the 60s, of course, in the Godzilla franchise in its early Showa era, into the science fiction movies like Matango and to name a few. The Space Amoeba, I'm going to give a very high rating around. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10 for an original idea of the alien being not just another alien in a outlandish costume or having a scheme to take over the Earth for X reason, but more of a bodiless entity that just possesses things just by touching them and then multiplying them and even mutating them just to achieve its end goal. So yeah, for me, that's an 8.5 out of 10.
Anthony.
I'll have to go with the Professor, an 8.5 out of 10. Like, you can tell the film was like definitely hindered by the budget cut, and it feels like in places they were rewriting it on the fly. But for what they were going for and how well they still achieved it, 8.5 out of 10 sounds fair.
Tony.
Well, I thought the beginning was a little slow. Like at first, I don't know why I was having trouble, but then when they introduced the characters and everything got it more interesting, I knew that guy was up to something. And the fighting, I shouldn't say there's not even that much fighting between, the creatures themselves, except at the end. But this is the look that I like that, how they can make the movies nowadays, and it looks cool. But I still really like the original looks to how they look. So that boosts up my score. I like the story. I'm glad they didn't win this amoeba, whatever they went into the guy. I thought, don't tell me he's going to grow like 50 feet tall or something, because that would have been kind of funny. But I'm glad they didn't. But yeah, I was seeing 8.5 as well. I enjoyed it. I'm trying to find it, and it's like, it's $20, but I'm gonna see if I can find it somewhere else.
Well, if you come to G Fest, I'm sure you will.
True.
Yes, Mr. Sci-Fi.
A lot of you guys put out all the some of the things I was gonna say. They did the best they could at the end of an era with the loss of E.G. Tsuburaya. They did the best that they possibly could with budget cuts, layoffs, and all of that, and losing probably one of the legends, one of the pillars of Toho. And I mean, I admire what they did. I loved Ganymede's, aka Ibara's ugly cousin, and then we have Izora. Yeah, there you go. Don't make me laugh. It goes Izora, and then we have Kamibis. So yeah, I'll give it an 8.5 because I gotta agree with the 8. Stop. I'll give it an 8.5. They did the best they could with it. Akira Kubo, Yoshiro, we call it Yoshiro Tsuchiya, and of course they had plenty of other ones. But yeah, it's an 8.5 for me. I can always revisit this one. It's a good Toho film, but it's just like I said, they did the best way they could with it.
Yes, Mr. Thrash.
Well, it's not to reiterate, but I shall reiterate. My feelings are very similar to, as you know, I'm a zombie movie buff. My feelings, it's the same Day of the Dead situation. Romero envisioned it as being this sort of massive zombie movie epic, but because of various constraints, he had to make Day of the Dead as we got it. A fine film. It gets a bad rap, but it actually is a very good companion to the trilogy. That being said, every time I see it, all I can think of is, God, I wish I could have seen the epic that had been his vision. And that's kind of where I am here. It's a kaiju film. You sit down, you watch it, you enjoy it. It's great. But all I can think of while I'm watching is, I wish we had gotten what they had wanted to give us. But that being said, there's no such thing as a bad kaiju film, with a couple of exceptions. But this is not one of those exceptions. So I'm going to give this a solid 8 out of 10 and stop complaining.
As for me, when it comes to good old Space Amoeba, I actually really like this movie. I've only seen it 2 or 3 times, and this is going to shock a lot of people. I actually prefer this movie over War of the Gargantuans. There's just something about this particular movie. I just love the craziness of the plot. I love the story stuck on this island and this alien entity that seemed to be trying to cause havoc. And I just like the plot better. I find with War of the Gargantuans, for example, it's a good story with amazing kaiju action, but I found there was a lot of pacing issues with it.
It kind of, there's parts when that one really does drag.
It drags on for where this one's quite quick. So after the Space Amoeba, loses one creature, it goes straight to another, loses another, and then the great bit with the bats. I thought that was very creative, bringing in the bats to be, in this. And I love that underwater special effect.
Don't forget the dolphins too.
Yes,
right.
With the dolphins, yes, and the underwater effect when you see Kazora, basically the sand moving and then suddenly appearing, just fantastic effects.
Yeah,
so I'm gonna give this. I'll quickly say that I'm gonna give this 9 out of 10.
Wow. And I'll just reiterate this. I think, looking back at it now, that should have been the first time we actually saw Ghidorah on screen.
I agree. That would have been epic. And there's something.
I was just glad to see Ghidorah. I was just glad to. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just glad to finally see Ghidorah in a movie instead of just beating him, like constantly beating him down. The first freaking enemy in Godzilla on the Godzilla video game for the Nintendo Entertainment System. So,
Well, when I'm bored and I'm sitting on the bus going to work, or if I'm stuck on the train, or probably when I'm in the airport heading to San Diego, I have downloaded the game Godzilla Battle Lines. And every couple of months, they add a new kaiju from the film library, and I'm just waiting till they bring the characters from this particular film into the game. The latest characters that they've introduced is Bagan and Super Godzilla from the Super Godzilla game, the Nintendo game.
Nice.
Before that, they introduced us to Varan, which is Daniel's favourite. So I'm sure it's only a matter of time before they are reintroduced to us. But before we wrap up, I just want to say, Sensei Red Spirit has said Akira Kurosawa is a legend, and he's also he's looking forward to that stream that I mentioned that I've decided I'm going to do, which is a special on the man and a number of his profiled films. So that will be coming to the entertainment headquarters next. Now, before I wrap up, I want to talk about the next classic Kaiju Connections monster movie that we're going to be looking at, and it's going to be a film that I don't know if some of you know or some of you don't know, and you all can be a part of the next classic review. It's going to be, I've got it here because I've just watched this the other day. It is the X from Outer Space.
In.
I'll definitely be in it.
Yes. So the X from Outer Space will be the next classic review, and probably after that we'll probably do the new special that we've just organised tonight. But we'll go around and ask what's coming to your channels in the near future, Mr. Jedi Granville.
Well, as some of you know, I'm already on the platform of getting things going. Hopefully, I will have some new, and which I will, new material, new content coming soon. And hopefully, like I say, I will be having Sci-Fi on a live stream, and all he has to do is just sit back and enjoy the show, But until then, until I work out some kinks and everything, as far as thumbnails, this, blah, blah, blah. Trust me, you will see me sexual chocolate, all my darkness.
How are we going to see all your
not all of it.
That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I guess
Not all of your.
Well, maybe I guess that's I phrased that wrong. So it's,
no, I get what you mean.
yes.
Oh, man.
Get Professor just like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to be part of.
It could only come from Jedi Granville. Yes. What can you say? He's starting his OnlyFans soon, so get a look out for that. By the way things are sounding. Mr. Jedi, not Jedi.
Calm down, Kevin.
You've addressed
I was going to
say, Mr. Daniel Miller, what's coming up next?
Okay. Right. Now, this is very early stuff I've got going on. I'm getting back in some fiction writing, but I'm going to try something a little bit different with that. Now, as I said, it's very early on in development, so it's going to be a while before you actually hear anything. Other things, illustration-wise, I do have something planned for Godzilla Raids Again's anniversary, so do keep an eye out.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and yes, this is true. It was not made by Dai or Toho, but it is like a sci-fi classic monster movie, so that's why we're going to cover it. Because we like to cover a lot of different things on the entertainment headquarters and the Kaiju Konnections segment, so it kind of fits in with us. Anthony Jordan, what's next?
Well, tomorrow we got You're Educating on Gundam, where me and Matt Gojira 851 get to teach you and the people at home a few things about a very awesome franchise. And my next Return of Godzilla-thon is Godzilla versus Gigan, which I have to finish watching / probably rewatch from start again. Then I can get on that review.
Yes. Mr. Tony the Dead.
I gotta finish editing right after this. Our Ghouls of Midnight, episode 39. We reviewed Popeye the Slayer Man, the newer one. So that'll be going up, and that's kind of it for now. I just had this, and then Ghouls next week. I don't really have anything planned, but yeah.
Sci-Fi Sentry.
I might have, as of right now, all I have is probably just gameplay videos, and but as far as any live streams, I'm gonna get with Anubis, DJ Anubis, and I'm gonna try to see if me and him can like collaborate for Event Horizon. Instead of doing it on just my channel because of everything I'm going through and all of that, and it's already kicking in. I'm already getting the freaking soreness on my neck and on my head, but I asked him if he would do it on not only because I think it's more logical to do it on his channel. If anybody else wants to join, it won't be limited to just 5 other people, including me. So in case if Anthony wants to jump on, if Tony wants to jump on, if Thrash, the professor, multiple people all can jump on without me having to worry about, oh man, you know what, I want everybody to get beyond, but I can only limit everybody to 5. So that's the only thing I probably got in the works. I have to get with DJ Anubis to plan what day, and we can find out what we're gonna do. How we're gonna do it, and then I have next Thursday for Anubis's Kaiju Spotlight, and me and him will be doing Titanosaurus.
Yes.
And we'll be covering Titanosaurus, and then I guess whatever you guys have lined up, or whatever you guys have lined up that you can add.
Yeah, I've got something special lined up for you, and that you're going to educate me on Spawn.
Yeah. So that's, but pretty much as far as that, I just want to, I don't want to keep too much time, but since I got all this stuff going on physically, I want to just take my time with it and actually do more of a collaboration so far, just until I can get my bearings back, and that way I can function to do my live streams, because everybody knows who knows what I go through. I have to be motivated. I have to be into it. I got to be, focused on doing it, or else I'll be like, nah, man, I'm not feeling it. So let's reschedule it. And I don't like to do that to the crew. I like to, I like to be in sync with people. But so far, that's all I got going on. And then I'll let everybody know. Keep everybody updated.
Yeah, whether it's on your channel or mine, you're always welcome, my brother. You're always part of the fam.
Oh yeah.
Could I say one quick thing before I forget?
Yes.
You go over on DJ Anubis's channel and check out episode 38 of Ghouls of Midnight, and we had Sci-Fi Sentry and Anthony Jordan on as guests, and we talked about the exorcism of Emily Rose. Very good discussion.
Yes.
Just want to tell you about that too. Anthony's going there right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Rash, what's coming up on your channel?
I'm sorry.
Well, this coming Sunday, of course, at 1, I'm going to be on, for you folks familiar with our friend Tug, the Unapologetic Geek. He's having a podcast on the greatest anthologies of all time, horror preferred. But there's some good sci-fi anthologies as well. But those old anthology films of like the 60s and 70s, we're going to talk about everybody's favorite ones of those, because it seems everybody loved those old anthology movies.
The Twilight Zone.
Perfect example. And then at 7, I'm getting together with, she was here. I believe she has her own podcast tonight. But Sister Sarah from My Flock is Everywhere. And Danny Staten and I, we're going to be discussing at length those old classic fun, schlocky sci-fi horror made for TV movies of the 70s. And yes, Walter, Bermuda Depths will feature prominently in that discussion, I promise you, because it's one of my favorites. Great cast, great story, great monster. It's probably the high watermark, pun intended, of the 70s horror film. Oh, and speaking, a little throw here. I may or may not be here tonight, by the way, but either way, this woman deserves a shout out. My Flock is Everywhere is doing a podcast this evening, I believe, starting at 8, and we'll be talking about Star Trek franchise. TOS preferred, but there's no wrong answer.
You know what? Because there's been nothing but a load of crap on the television, and I've got Netflix. I've been rewatching all the Star Trek, so I've went from the very beginning. I got through all of the original series. I finished Next Generation. I've literally finished Deep Space Nine, and I'm probably 6 episodes into Voyager.
Wow.
So I love myself some Star Trek.
Yeah, life.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Bless you. But anyway, what was I going to say? I'm just going to wrap things up by letting people know what's coming on the entertainment headquarters. So first and foremost, some promotion for a good friend of mine, Mr. Jedi Velle, like we said. He has his Matango 1963 review up live on his channel now. Get over there and check it out. As I mentioned before, the next classic Kaiju review is going to be the X from Outer Space. And then tomorrow night, like Anthony said, we have Educate Me on Gundam, the first of my brand new segment, Education, where I pick a genre or a subject in entertainment, or maybe not entertainment, that I need, a bit of help with, a bit of knowledge with, and I'm relying on the people involved to help us.
Whatever comes.
I then have, this has just went live on my channel, my Mickey 17 review. And next week, I will be doing it with a host of amazing guests. Legend, 1985. So that's literally what I have coming up on my channel next week. But this has been amazing. Thank you to everybody that took part. I always appreciate it when my guests are here, because yous make this channel what it is, and it wouldn't be the same without any ears. As for the audience watching, thank you so much for interacting with us. Everybody, you've been amazing. It's been a great turnout, and I truly do appreciate it. Like I say, this has been the entertainment headquarters. This has been Kaiju Connections. We'll catch us all on the next one. And as my good friend Jedi Granville always says, you better keep the Kaiju love alive.
You better.